Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, and I'm taking care of business. Joining me today is Donna Carson, a licensed insolvency trustee with NNP Limited in Calgary. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Mario.
Well, you put out, NNP put out a very interesting survey results recently, where it shows that 50% of Albertans say rising interest rates could drive them closer to bankruptcy. Does that number surprise you? Is it a high number?
I would say just based on discussions that we have with people here in the office or virtually, that no, it didn't surprise me. I think it's something that we've been seeing in our survey for a few quarters now, that Canadians, and in particular in Alberta, were concerned and worried about the possibility of interest rates and what it was going to do to me. Now I know the question that was asked, the one you mentioned, is it going to, am I going to be facing bankruptcy because of it? I think, bankruptcy is maybe the most common term, and that's why it's used, but it's more of a financial crunch. It's insolvency. I'm not going to be able to make ends meet. Maybe not necessarily a bankruptcy in my thinking of clients we talk to, but it is definitely more of an insolvency or I'm struggling answer for sure.
So why are we seeing in Alberta this being a more severe problem than the rest of the country?
Well, I think when you look at other surveys that come out quarterly and annually, Albertans have had consistently, as far back as I can remember, consistently higher debt levels than the rest of the country. I think it was just over 25,000 of unsecured debt that Albertans have last month when the last survey came out per person. Whereas in Canada, it was about 20,500. So in Alberta, on average, we've got about $4,500 more of consumer debt load that we're carrying right now. And then you start to think about it with the cost of living, which, yes, is going up across the country, but the cost of living here and groceries and gas in the car and housing prices, it's all sort of compounding, if you will. And then the interest rates on top of it with our higher debt levels here, I think that's why we are seeing more concern right across the board in all the questions we asked this time.
And maybe, Donna, if you can delve a little further, like why is it that, what has got Albertans to this position over time?
Yeah, it didn't happen overnight. That's so true. The debt situation and the feelings that we're having did not happen overnight. If I think back to before COVID, so this would take us back to February of 2020.
Yeah.
And with the people that we were meeting with, there was a lot. We were meeting with a lot of people, and across the province in Alberta, on average, there was about 1,450 insolvencies every month. And then when COVID hit, you would think that insolvencies would be busier because people were struggling, but it actually was the other way. Depending on what region you live in, insolvencies dropped by about a third. And so now, as of last fall, we're starting to see insolvencies go up a bit. And so what all of that says to me is, I don't think that debt has disappeared. When in February of 2020, when we were seeing record numbers of insolvencies in the province and meeting with people, it didn't disappear. It hasn't gone away. Banks were holding off. CRA was holding off. People were trying to work together to get through the pandemic. But I think now you're starting to see some of those collection activities start up a bit again.
All right. Now, when you look back, in time in Alberta, we had the oil prices start to collapse in late 2014. That led to thousands and thousands of job losses in Alberta, and a number of years of recessions in the province as well. Are we still having that accumulated, I guess, challenge economically. Has that been a factor in putting more people where they are today in terms of their debt?
I think so. We, continually hear from people that I'm not back at work yet, or my hours have been cut back, or I'm working in an industry where I get a few hours at this employer, a few hours at this employer, but combined, it's just not enough. But with some of the COVID relief benefits ending in recent months, those people are now being affected as well. So yes, some people, they're back at work, but we do regularly hear the paychecks aren't what they were, back when, at least not yet. And then, the interest rates starting to increase is throwing another wrench in. And I think the low interest rates has been part of what's been helping people to not have to file an insolvency or not have to take more other measures to deal with the debt, because the interest rates have been low. We've been able to manage and get through. And so that's kind of been not the Band-Aid, but a little bit of the Band-Aid that's been holding it together. But now that Band-Aid is starting to come off, I think we're going to start to see, unfortunately, some of those people that have been struggling, we're going to start to hear from them.
All right, super. Last question I had for you, Donna. So what tips, I guess, can you offer people who are worried about their finances these days, or, they're worried about their debt load and, of course, the rising cost of living?
Yeah. Well, obviously that there are options, to your point earlier, where we asked people, are you feeling closer to bankruptcy right now? And again, because that's maybe more a word that's known versus an insolvency. Insolvency simply just means there's not enough to go around. Bankruptcy is one option for some people to best deal with that insolvency situation, but it's definitely not the only option. So there are options. And I think the two tips I would give is, number one, to talk to a licensed professional like us at NMP about those options. The earlier we can have that discussion, the more options generally there are that are available. And the other tip I would give is to write it down. So many times when we meet with people, we don't have, what is my budget right now? What is the cost of our groceries right now? Track it for a couple of months and see what it is right now. Because if I don't know where I'm at today, I'm not going to know how to get to where I want to be tomorrow. Write down the debt that I do have. Write down what the minimum payment for each of them is, write down what the interest rate for each of them is, so that then you could have a good, well-rounded discussion about, how do I want to pick away at this? How do I want to deal with it?
Yeah. All right. Super. Thanks very much, Donna, for joining us today.
Thank you, Mario.
All right. That was Donna Carson, licensed insolvency trustee for MNP Limited in Calgary. I'm Mario Toneguzzi. This has been Taking Care of Business. Thanks for joining us today.